Good evening, folks. It's Pom here from Pallatrax over on the main Pallatrax page this evening, not on the team page for any team members that are looking in. So, yeah, I've got a busy one tonight. So lots to talk about, lots to chat. Just see who is going to pop in, if anybody. And let's see if my feed from down here in deepest, darkest Devon is working or not. So if anybody can give me, there's a few faces popping in now. So if you can give me some kind of comment to see if my comments are working. So that's the normal challenge I have. So let me swipe left or swipe right or whatever I meant to do, and nothing's showing yet. Ah, there we go. Hi Lee, how you doing, mate? You made it this week. Hope it's all well with you and yours. So my comment, Colin, I expected you to be here. Hope you and Haley are well. Robert, how you doing? Great to see you out again with your brother. So that's fantastic, isn't it? Still at your age, still out there fishing with your brother. Fantastic. So, yeah, lots going to go on tonight. But what will be happening shortly is Galen from over in Canada is going to be joining us. He's one of our team members. Many of you may know him. He's very, very good evening, Paul. He's very kind of au fait with what Pallatrax is all about. He's him and his brother. Him and oh dear me, it's been a long day already. Galen, and you've got Vince over there, and you've got Dan and his brother Brendan. So it's fantastic that we've got. I think it's quite cool, isn't it? We've got people like as far away as Thailand, like people like Paul and Simon at Top Cats and other fisheries out there, all the way across into the States and far beyond. So hi Duncan, all the way from Jersey, I believe it is. Matthew Rice. I was working out there today, Matt. Started working on the side of the lakes. This is Ashmansworthy Pools. My lake's down here in North Devon. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of things just to go through. First of all, hi Martin, how you doing? Yeah, actually, Martin just makes a note. I know this is on the main page, but on the team page, there's 2,500 of us now. It's getting incredibly fantastic on all levels. And there was a fishing this weekend at Wylands. It's something that we hold every month. We kind of do a fishing. And Tim and Luke, two of our long-standing team members and who are the event managers. Again, it sounded like a cracking weekend, so big thanks to them. Evening, Sue Graham, all the way from up north. Hope you and Renee are well. So yeah, huge thanks to Tim and Luke. Fantastic efforts. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, like with our friends from Canada, the amount of stuff they're doing. Hi Terry, the amount of things that people are doing generally, whether it's team members or not. It's just kind of growing and growing and growing. So before I kick off, I will just start off. If you didn't know, we always have a live feed raffle. What you have to do is you have to PM me. You just PM me yes if you want to. Hi, Galen, you'll be here soon. So for tonight's live feed raffle, I have got one of each of the whole set of the carp hooks. So in the grips pattern. So all you got to do, if you want to be in chance of winning better part of £27 worth of these wonderful hooks, is miss you too, Rini.
Message Pallatrax on this one.
Sorry?
We just send them the message to Pallatrax, not you.
I'm doing this all wrong now. I've done it all wrong. It doesn't take. You've got to send yes to the Pallatrax messenger Facebook thing, not to Simon Pomeroy. So again, I get it all wrong. Nothing changes. That's what a lot of people like to see me make a mess. It's more realistic. So if you want to be with a chance of winning these, don't PM me. Basically PM the main Pallatrax messenger board or whatever. Sue, you might have to help me again and put the instructions up. There's quite a lot of people here. So hi Matthew. Yes, you may laugh at me, Terry, and I do it all the time. You have to keep laughing. So yeah, so somebody here on the raffle on the feed tonight will win 4 packets of the hooks. So it's straight points, charged grips and curve shanks. So that's me. There's my bit of paper to thank Tim and Luke. So yes. So just quickly going through things just to so you know a bit of an update about what's going on behind the scenes. PM yes to the Pallatrax page. There we go, Sue. New website under construction. That's all very exciting. some great stuff coming through. That's, you know, several months away, but we're starting now. A lot more filming, a lot more kind of educational stuff about how to get the best out of a bait, which is what I'm going to do shortly. Is just going to show you how I get the best out of one of the baits that probably, again, I developed stuff. I'm useless at telling people, so then it's a bit of a guesswork if you're not in my head. So really, I'm just going to show you how I get the best out of the hardened hook baits. But before I kick off, it's something I mentioned on the team page. Hi Stephen, hope you're well. My rig bin, so to speak. I'm old school, and so I do just use a piece of the old lagging piping stuff. I get some mat pins, and then I can put... Now, the reason I do this mainly is a lot of these rig wallets you get now, I don't know if you can see the kicker on the back of here. Okay, I'm allowed with this to keep that kicker in the shape I want to. A lot of times, these rig bins, because the way they're set up and people pull the rig taut to hold it in there, it actually flattens the kicker, so you can completely change the dynamic of that. You know, like, let me just show you. Actually, here's one here. Here's one I made earlier. So you can see there, okay, that's what the kicker should be, right? So it's curved and a very aggressive turn. If you leave him in those bins, it goes like that. And you'll notice, and I've seen down here at Ashton's Purdy Pools a lot lately, where people are taking them straight out of their rig wallets and casting out like that, which is obviously totally different from the shape it should be. Now, if you do suffer from that, you can obviously steam them back into shape. But just to be aware that if you're going to, hi Darren, if you're going to use a rig like that, that is not the way, obviously, it's started off with in your rig wallet. So make sure that you've got that curve. That curve is so, these rigs are so important. We need to focus on so many areas in angling, and the thing is, with a poor rig, don't get me wrong, even the worst rig in the world, and I've seen some terrible rigs catch fish, but if you want to catch lots of fish and you want to catch lots of fish safely, a good rig is really important. Hi Les, hope you're doing well. So right, before Galen, and Galen hopefully will be sending me a friend's message, Galen. I think you've got to, I can press a button here and we'll get into the full thrust of chatting. But hardened hook baits. Yes, Les, you've got to send it to the Pallatrax, because we're on the Pallatrax page tonight. Spent an hour with the kit, we're trying to put the kit back. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain, isn't it, Matthew? If you get, like I say, it's every action has an equal and opposite, doesn't it? If you, oh no, Mr. Kelly's in the house. Good evening, Scales. And like I say, when you pull those out, that kicker out of shape, you change the whole kind of dynamic of your trap. Hi Stav, hope you're well. Catching barbel, good to see. And yeah, it is something that I've noticed, especially having the new fishery and talking to people when they come and, you know, showing them the rigs I use. And then you look in the last 3 people have had these kind of flattened kickers. And like I say, you're changing the whole dynamic. But by using this, as you can see, I'm just slightly putting it in there so the kicker keeps the same shape, and then just pulling it taut. And this is mega cheap, but in my humble opinion, much better, because you don't pull that out. And also you can tie zig rigs around the bottom, things like that. There's lots you can do with this stuff. Awesome stuff. So anyway, so my little demo this evening. Hi Neil, how you doing? Guilty for rig now, change your way. Yeah, well, like I say, you know, every day's a school day, isn't it, Paul? You know, we all help each other. That's what the name of the game is in angling. And, you know, these little tips, well done, Les, these little tips are always good. So, right, what's the hardened hooker? So, if you're a Pallatrax, you'll know, I don't want to make a real mess, but this is really thick, these different glugs. Okay, so it's mega thick. So there's a way to use the hardened hook baits. And what are the hardened hook baits? These actually are the glugs with baits that come with them, and they're pre-drilled. Now, why are they pre-drilled? That's the key to what happens. The natural sugars in this really thick glug, and they say lots of different flavours, very, very potent, actually create a preservative. So we only use HMV freezer baits. And so you can leave these in here and they'll just take on the flavour, really become boosted hook baits. They won't mould because of the natural sugars in there. And so it's great to know that you're using HMV on the hair as well as your freebies. But the benefit is also, one of the many benefits, aside of catching lots of fish on a boosted hook bait, it's Crave, Neil. Yeah, it's a bit potent, isn't it? Is as it draws in Okay, because you're putting basically a wet bait, i.e. a freezer bait in. There's an element of water still with that bait. And so when it kind of seeps in, really seeps in the glug, okay? And what it does, it makes these baits so hard, hence why we sell them as the hardened hookers, because it is a bit of a pain to put a hole in it. And if you've got a bait that you then have to, you can just leave them in the glugs and then take them out and drill them and things like that. But obviously this is a little bit easier if you're of interest. So you can, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to turn my screen around here a bit. Evening, old Sam. Good man, Stephen. It certainly works. Right, let me just move this around, folks. So let me get my light in place. So yeah, so as you can see, this stuff is really kind of super thick. Okay, and so what you've got is a really thick, gloopy stuff. Now, this will stay with your hook bait all the time. Exactly like Lee is saying there. Anything that will, because they go so hard, anything like poisson chat or crayfish, these are the babies to go to. They really, not only are they a great bait, but they take hours for them to nibble those down. The other thing I do before I move on, I can smell it, I can certainly smell it, Colin, is when I'm fishing, I'm very much like the match angler, so I'll have my glug baits all prepped, ready to go. So as soon as I catch a fish, if it's on this bait, I've got one that's been glugging, and I can literally get it ready to go. And what I also love doing with this stuff is using anything I can get, cooking the bacon, anything I can get to get those fish to find my bait is key for me. We forget sometimes, I believe, how fish find it. And if they find it through taste on the water, they have nostrils, smell on the water, but also through this sense called the olfactory system. So I like to put anything out. So I can then dunk this sticky old hook bait, which is hard and super boosted. In this case, it's the maggot powders. I like the Daphne powders. I'll just pop it in the tank there, and we'll just leave that. Hopefully you can see that, and you'll see what's happening. So there's bits coming off the glug. So I'm just going to show you a good example. So you have different ways you can put your hair rig this on. So for example, in this one, this is my favourite way. So I go through the centre, put it on my ha. Like I say, you will get a bit sticky. Just have a bowl of water next to you on the bank. But I can assure you that it's worth getting sticky for. It's worth it by 100 miles. So again, then I'm going to put on a 10mm white fluoro. So this is a Crave bait, and I'm going to put on a Crave little 10mm popper, which, to be fair, I've pre-soaked in a bag. I always pre-soak my hookers, all of my baits, to be fair. I give them a good old boosting. Like I say, I'm trying to create this whole, I don't know, aura of attraction so they can come in. And so I'm just going to pop that on there. Boilie stop, like I say, you get a little bit sticky, and people have said I'm not using it, it's too sticky. And it's like, fair enough, but I tell you what, ignore it. Oh, this is the trouble getting old, folks. I can't see because this is further away than my eyes allow. This is always a challenge now to put the boilie stop through. Right, hang on, bear with me. I'm going to hold this completely differently. Open up the hair like I should be doing, and not trying to do it too quickly. So all I've done so far is made a mess. So yeah, put my boilie stop in, and that's basically, that will always this is the funny thing about white, isn't it? There's so much talk about colours and things like that, and all my years in this game, I'm still, you know, all over the place in it, but for some reason white does work. And I've seen some underwater stuff where fish time and time again, okay, it's been in gin clear waters, but they beeline, hi Christian, they beeline straight for anything like that with a white topper on it. So, you know, certainly worth considering, but does it work every time? So then I'm going to put that back in, and like I say, I'm going to get a bit sloppy. So I've just got a little bowl of water next to me here, and so take that out, and again stick it in there just before casting out, getting it really coated, and then we'll put this one just in there as well. And like you say, we'll see that. I'll show you that later on in the feed. But as you can probably see, I'm never really good at zooming in. Here we go. Hi, Dan. Hopefully that's a little bit better. You can see all this stuff lifting off, zooming all over the place, drawing it in. And because it's maggot, we know maggots, you know, a very powerful additive, especially in that format. We know Daphnia, the water flea, which fish stay with all the time. But these hardened hookers, they do a specific job. And I could tell you some very interesting stories when these have, there's almost a good excuse to fish these all the time in this kind of approach. If I'm going to be on the deck using these, because basically the fish are finding it very, very quickly. And that's the concept of it. Say, it's worth getting a bit mucky. Everyone comes with a hole in it, so it's a lot easier. All I do is I'll take, let me just show you here. So I'll take a bait out, have some water next to me, just to wash it off, and then I will mount that on the hair, do whatever, and then it goes back into the glug, and off we go, like I just showed you. So hopefully that's a little tip. But like I say, there's many a thing that I kind of design. I design it for my own. Let me just come back. I design it for my own angling, and then forget to tell people. I tell you what, and it is genuine, because I want people to catch fish. That's the whole point of many of these kind of feeds. Like I say, all I can do is draw people to the conclusions I've made. And you know, I'm never here to tell any angler how to fish, but I do think if you replicate a lot of the things we're doing, you'll replicate the rewards we get. And I'm firm belief that blanking is a better experience. It's not a very good experience. Catching is a much better experience. So yeah, but like I say, using good quality baits and a good rig and mucking around, and you'll see in a minute, we'll go back in and have a closer look up at those yeah, those baits, and you'll see the one with the little 10mm pop-up will always sit up the right way. So again, if it is, and it's a big if, I do think it comes down to so many variables. But if there is something with white, at least we know that the white is showing. That's the thing that's showing. And so watch this stuff over, totally uncontrived, unedited. Back to work for you. Well, good on, Andrew. Good on you, mate. You go for it. Good luck. So yeah, and these fish were coming in, and there was, let's just say there was 100 freebies, and there was one in there with a white topper on it. They just seemed to come to it. And is it because that shows it wasn't a special bait? All it was one that had these white toppers on. So and if you talk to people like Sue Graham and Zig Rigging and things like that, yeah, it is one of those things. Just to remind you, there is a raffle going. If you didn't see at the beginning, PM Pallatrax direct, just saying yes, PM on Messenger, Facebooky thingy, and if you would like to win this little grips bundle of each of the different hooks, just say yes. So right, Galen, where are you? I'm going to call in Galen now, if Galen is working in Canada, because if not, it's all going to go horribly wrong. So, can't find how to PM you. Why have been working well for me this year? Yeah, it's something new. I don't know, because there is this thing. I can remember when I had my last fishery, people were fishing on plastic, and I'm not a fan of plastic now for very reasons. But anyway, as they were catching on plastic sweet corn, is it because they were just happened to be fishing on plastic sweet corn? They were catching on plastic sweet corn. Thanks, Galen, B2 And I say again, is it white? Because we're catching on white, but there seems to be. I do a lot of. I'm able to study a lot of what's going on around me. You know, different parts of the country, different. And white just, you know, does seem to be something there. I've certainly caught lots of fish on white, but then is there other times when it puts them off? We'll never know. Too many variables. Right, here we go. Hopefully, all the way from Canada, we're going to get bobbing in. So it's been sent, Galen, and there's a couple of questions here. So one's directly for you. Just click message on the Pallatrax page. Hopefully that's all making sense. Oh, come on. I always get very suspicious of Facebooky stuff and trying to add people and one thing and another. Drum roll. Yeah, it's a long drum roll now, isn't it? Is there any glug you think works better with multi-worm? To be fair, we make our own up, really, Paul. There is a film somewhere on the team page, which is where we get the neutral glug. You can use all of these powders to create almost a bug kind of insect kind of glug. But there's nothing wrong with using multi with crave or jungle glugs. You know, how can we get flavours wrong? You know, if we're using flavours for to attract a fish to the bait or bite zone, just looking for a crest. I love the wild crab or infused with naturals. Connection failed. That's not good. You'll have to try it again. Sorry, folks, it's all going wrong. The whole thing's going wrong. Yeah, like Sue's saying, she loves the wild crab. I mean, that's really, you know, that's a really stinky affair. You know, but there's nothing wrong. I can remember that there's a very well-known fishery owned by the carp society now called Ashmead, and one of the guys started fishing half of a crave and half of a jungle. So he's cutting baits in half, called it crungle, and that different, you know, that different Pomentech. Thanks, mate. Yeah, that kind of mixture of flavours was just working at Ashmead. Went to other feet, you know, so you're on an HMV base, so you've got these different flavours, and way ho, off it goes. Right, hang on a second now. Yeah, I bet they are, Neil. Right, here we go again. Let's hopefully, if they said, it's adding. Just another thing, somebody kindly sent me, a team member kindly sent me these in regards to glug hook baits, because he saw me getting, and I'm going to turn my camera around for this. There's this little fella, looks quite nasty little beast, but it's a great little thing to just drag a bait out. It's got these little kind of arms on it, just to drag a real gungy bait out like that and not get yourself too mucky. So yeah, thanks to who kindly sent me that, but it's just a good way of crapping the baits without getting too mucky. This is not getting good, Galen. It's not looking good, folks. I'm trying to add. We've actually always managed to get through to Galen, so it's more than likely North Devon. While I'm waiting again, let's just zoom in if I can. And so what you see there, you see how the glug has kind of just created a bed, and all of this maggot attraction. Connection failed. Oh, this is not looking good, Galen. What I do know, Galen, sometimes if you go out and come back in, that could be the problem. So it might be worth you doing that, because it'd be great to get you on here. So I know people historically, they've kind of come away and then come back in, set it all up again. So yeah, so you can see the white topper always sat up on top. Your hook, if people are that, you know, I'm not too sure, but obviously it's nice that the hook is covered in the traction as well. But that's really, really, really an effective way of fishing. And obviously the rig I'm using is the standard LQ rig, which has caught me ridiculous amounts of fish. So I tend to use that without overcomplicating things. It's a relatively easy rig to make, team member exclusive, but it just catches so many fish. So when you've got that combination, you can see all of that attraction, and we're trying different attractions to, you know, to find the fly on the day, which is my kind of metaphor. If you look at all other areas of fishing, and if we're talking carp fishing now, even tench fishing, barbel, all these things, we need to be very aware that in all these other areas of fishing, you know, lure fishing, you have multiple lures. You can't take 1,000 flies like you can a tiny little fly. You can take a wallet and you can have 100 flies in there. But you can take 3 or 4 change up, and that's why I always got these pots. So I'll have a jungle, a strawberry, you know, and crave, etc., etc. And yeah, I've got, you know, if I've got fish in the swim, and I don't believe for a minute it'll be my rig. You know, I believe it will be. Like in other areas of fishing, they are not on the bait at that time, so at least I've got the ability to change bait. Right, here we go. Any questions, obviously, please do ask away. Because I say, this is just how I fish, you know, and the benefits are what they are. So hang on a second, let me scroll down. Heard a lot about the grips, got my first pack recently, love them. Yeah, Lee, I mean, there was a couple of people who would come out with the most outrageous statements. And that's all you do, isn't it? It's a real shame that people can do this on social media, because we do find out these people have another agenda. I'm not going to get in bore with people with it, but it's a bit sad. But when you look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of hooks we've sold and the hundreds and hundreds of independent, these odd people are obviously out just to give Pallatrax a bit of a poke, and I think they look pretty, make themselves look pretty daft, to be honest. Just boilie grabber on eBay. There you go. That's a boilie grabber. So yes, I wouldn't believe some of the stuff that's said out there. That's all I'm saying. What's the tool called? Right, I'm just going, don't forget to clean it when used. Yes, exactly, yeah. We've got to save up and get Comtech cloths. You need a lot of money. No, it's just coming up as connection failed. So I don't know. It looks like you're going to be stuck with me, folks. I do very much apologise. So a couple of days, where were we? Just going through it. So yes, so that is the boilie grabber thing. All right, you can hopefully see what it can grab. It's quite good, isn't it? Quite nice little bit of tool. But yeah, just finishing off about, we're always going to get our haters. That's just life, I'm afraid. You know, you've only got to read comments in the Express or the Mail or anything. You know, there's just people out there. Sorry to keep harping on with questions. No, you're asking, what is your take on spade end? Should be interesting. And knots for tying eye hooks, because I experienced problems threading braid through the eye. Know about sharp braids for cutting it. Just wanted to know if there's a potential safety. No, I mean there won't be a potential safety issue. To be fair, I know you sent me that question, Michael, which came back to you, but obviously spade end is a totally different. It's not actually, if you think about it, but it's totally different to many people. Many people, you know, spade end was developed for really good presentation on smaller hooks, more than anything. No, you'll always get a bit of fray. I mean, what some people do, you know, you get a lighter and just nick it, and that will stop that fray. But it certainly won't be a fish safety thing, because I'll be the first to, you know, be saying that. Well, my misgivings on some of the braids out there, they're so thin. If you catch a fish and obviously the fish is going that way and you've got it caught in the scissors, this is where you see parrot mouths. People think that these cuts in the mouths are actually from hooks, and so where the mouth gets kind of these injuries here. It's actually not. It's from line that is cutting into the scissors, and that is why I particularly like the LQ rig from a fish safety point of view, because it's coated, so you don't ever get an issue with that. But yeah, so there's a couple of products out there that I'm not a fan, because they're just too thin. And if a fish is going that way and you're pulling that way and it's in there, that becomes the weak point. Okay, so that when you see parrot damage, and people I've always seen it going on, oh, it's the hooks causing damage. It's got nothing to do with the hooks. And unfortunately, many a time now, especially when I see people fishing on a 3.5 pound test curve rod, huge difficulty to bend that rod when you're catching a relatively small carp of, let's just say 10 or 12 pounds. So you're really exerting to pull that fish, and there's a huge amount of pressure on here, huge amount of pressure. But yeah, just going back to our recent spate of haters about grips. Proof in the pudding, you've only got to look at what we're all catching, and you get one person that says they've opened up a hook under dubious situations. And I'm not here. If there's anything wrong with my products, I'm the first to be there. I hate to think that we would ever sell anything that's not of the quality that I expect. So yeah, and the bigger we've got, to be fair, the more haters. So perhaps some people out there are starting to worry what we're doing. Perhaps I am telling the truth. Right, so I'm missing a few comments. So hopefully that. Hi Simon, how you doing? Good evening. Hutch, Beanie, good evening. Where's Shrink Tube? That's where Shrink Tube. Yeah, exactly, Neil. Having that Shrink Tube kicker, by default, to be fair, it's not there for that, but actually having that kicker will definitely, you know, again, gives us that protection. Thanks for an answer. It is an eyesight problem. Oh no, tell me about it. You're scaring the big companies. I think, you know, I'm not being funny here. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Gary. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I think a lot of people are starting to. We've always been very transparent. We've always, you know, and now we've got the fishery. I think that's a real benefit again, because people are coming down. They're seeing how literally we're fishing. Carpology have been fantastic. The fields we've been doing with those guys, they've really kind of at least we're now getting, like I say, I'm not being funny. Let's just turn this round again. Okay. Hi, Mark. How you doing? So, like I say, I'm not here to sell anything to anybody. All I can say is this is how I fish. And doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make sense when you let's just order one? There you go. Doesn't that make sense to have a high voltage hook bait with a white tipper, because white keeps on coming to the equation, surrounded by a powerful and potent glug that's holding all of that crystallized insect into it? Where's the con in that? Where's the kind of thing? And it's not. There is no con. This is a way I fish. And Luke Cunningham from the Success of the Fishing. Well done, my friend. You and Mr. Pittham. Good to see you here. So, like I say, it's about things that I can only draw people to. If that's not for you, it's not a problem, is it? It's grips isn't for you, but it does frustrate me when you get the haters out there, because I think it's a bit sad that people can be that shallow and impact a person's business. But they're there, they're always going to exist, and it's not just like me that gets haters, but I think some people are really starting to sit up. Any hook will straighten if put under too much pressure. Yeah, I mean, like I say, we'll finish this very off, but there was a picture floating around, people catching catfish and huge carp and, literally whales on grips kind of thing, and then one person put up, and I'd be very suspicious, but God, the haters just jumped on it. Top setup, and it's tried and tested for perfection. Exactly. So anyhow, Galen, do you want to try just again? So I think you need to close everything down and then come back. That's all I've been told. Rob the Bear, how you doing, sir? You all well up in the north? Yeah, if you have your haters, do something right. Pom, can I have some of those floats used if I phone you? Yes, you give it. I still haven't got on the website, Simon. So yeah, just give us a tinkle, my friend. Is Merman in the house? There we go. I'm not too sure about that. So Galen is going to try again, but I do have a couple of questions here. The first one is for Galen, so I can't really speak for Galen. But Duncan DeGruchy, I hope I've spelled that wrong, Duncan, I know he's from Jersey, so lots of French kind of surnames are there. Would you start a session with a different type of hook bait on each rod? Yes. To be trying. Where can you get the bait? It's just on the Pallatrax website. It's on there. But just going back to, sorry, Gary had asked me a question there. Where I am with baits is so Polaris, great floats. I just fish it slightly different. Sorry, I'm all over there. Live and kicking palms, new clock in the. Nah, it's still the old one, mate. Still broken. Still turn it every week. Where I'm with baits, if anybody knows me, they'll have seen some of the stuff I've done fly fishing with flavours. So flavoured cork ball and I've seen fish come through chummies, come through proper carp feed floating pellets, and nail what is basically a flavour. Yeah, and if you think about carp, they're an underslung mouth, so basically they've got to feed, their eyes are that way, so they can come up and see something, but they can't, once they're over it, they can't see it. So then if you look around like these chemoreceptors and the barbels, they're like a tongue. They put these in the silt and they can taste. It's incredible, the olfactory system, the whole way how fish basically smell on the air. We're just going to try and get Galen in here again. One more go, Galen. And there is two sides to the story here. You could get a flavour, it could be the wrong flavour, it could be too powerful or whatever, and it could potentially spook a fish, couldn't it? Like I said, there's so many variables going on. But what we do know is fish come to flavours. Now that flavour might be a synthetic flavour, it could be a natural flavour. So if you think about if you think about multiworm is basically insects blitzed into oblivion, and so as soon as they're out in the water, they're actually rotting body parts. I know that sounds a bit. Hi, Justin. A bit. Yeah, there we go. Lee's saying aroma chemicals play a huge part in attracting fish, 100%. I don't think we should forget that. So flavours can be key, not to us. It's all well and good us going, oh, that smells lovely, or that smells bad. That doesn't necessarily relate to a single fish at a time. Watercolours should also be good. What's this? Sorry, I'm missing a few. No, it failed again. I don't know. Sorry about that. Paragraph. Light damage is more than this. It's work. Like I say, we're all going to have different opinions, Cliff, but I can assure you, fish caught after time and time again in the same place, it just keeps ripping and ripping, and the fish never has the chance to hear. So sorry about that, Galen, but I will ask your question in a minute. But so yeah, going back onto Duncan's question, therefore I can go all in on a single flavour, couldn't I? But therefore I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, especially when I fish with other people. We tend to fish as a team, especially if we go on a Pallatrax kind of fishing together. We'll know what each other are fishing, a bit like the fly angler, a bit like the match angler. And if somebody starts catching on a particular bait, we'll all, if they catch one fish, that could be luck. Catch two fish, and they're thinking, hang on a second, I haven't caught anything on multi-worm, and they're fishing on jungle. And that's how me and Sue fish. We're always keeping an eye on what's going on, what tactical approach, what pellet, how you're making the method mix up, all these kind of things. But obviously, the hook bait is in many ways the key, because though they can't physically eat it, obviously, but it's the thing that they officially inhale. And so if you put three different ones, if you're fishing three rods, especially if you've got fish moving in front of you, that's always makes it easier, to be fair. If one of those baits starts getting more, interest than the other ones, then I'm always thinking, right, and I get a fish, and then I get another fish, say, on that same rod, and there's still fish out across all three rods. I would be, moving over to that one bait. So I start off with three baits, and then find which one, if anything, and then I'm moving it. There's lots of things. I'm like a busy match angler. I'm moving and changing baits all the time. But yeah, very much so, Duncan. I would never, ever. It's a strange thing. I've seen it in all the years I've been in this industry, where anglers, especially carp anglers, barbel anglers to some extent as well now, they will focus on one bait. And unfortunately, that doesn't work in all other areas of fishing, and so if somebody phones up to me and said, I want 10 kilos of jungle, for example, I'd be the first to say, do you really need that much bait? Because this is such high nutritional value bait that, it's like washing up liquid. You can get weaker stuff or you can get strong stuff. You don't need too much of it to fill a fish up. So don't buy too much, but don't buy just one flavor or one base mix. You need to basically really think about it and buy a bit of each. So I would say buy 2, 2 and 2 with jungle, crave and multi-worm, and then you've got those options, because you don't need to throw loads of it in. Because it's always a strange one. People say, I'm fishing over 10k of bait or something like that. And you go, 10k of what? And they go, bait. And you go, what bait? Boilies. Well, yeah, but what's the nutritional value of it? Because it could be meaningless. It could be nothing. And if you put something 10 kilos of a bait out there that's got no nutritional value, so i.e. no food, fish aren't going to eat it. It'll just sit there and have havoc. Right, I'm missing a few comments here. So yes, so Cliff, that's where I am with it. Love to try some. Sorry, no worries, Stephen. Yeah, glug over hook bait won't stand out. One of my freebies, exactly. We're trying. That's where I am with the glugged hook bait. The cherry on the cake. And I've had a couple of interesting sessions where I've gone from unglugged hook baits and had huge hits on the glugged hook baits. So like I say, as I said right at the beginning, there is a reason to always be fishing the glugged hook bait. But conversely, could it be that you're putting out a load of freebies that aren't boosted and they're going to eat all the freebies and ignore the one that's different? That's where so many variables. That's what makes it interesting. Get him on loudspeaker phone. That's too late. Tim Pinstrom, just late. 5-hour drive. That's the commitment that Tim and Luke have got. Well done, Tim. I said, you missed it before. I did thank you. I've sent you a message. The amount of messages I've got from the team fishing, that it was just amazing. I know there wasn't a great amount of fish caught. Unfortunately, that's fishing, but everybody had a sterling time, and huge thanks to you and Luke. So well done. The team kind of family coming across. What's your opinions on baits blowing? That's an interesting one. Why do baits blow? What I would say, okay, and I'm quite vocal about this, having had and been very interested to see at my own fisheries over the years and fisheries that I've consulted for, and I've dealt with a very, very interesting case last year. Why do baits blow? Baits blow initially. You've always got to remember, right? A fish can only pick up the bait on the hair if you're hair rig fishing. Agreed? Or on the hook. It's not going to eat it. It's impossible to eat it because it's attached to the hook or it's attached to the hair. Okay? So therefore, we will catch fish through lures. So basically a bait item that has no nutritional value. It might be a flavoured ball of flour, which doesn't exist out there with synthetics. So you'll catch a fish and the illusion is, well, that fish is eating my bait. Well, look how many fish are caught on plastic sweet corn. At the end of the day, it goes in the mouth, and the hook takes purchase as you know. But it doesn't prove it's eating anything. So where do I think? And I saw it very much at my old fishery, where a new bait would come on the fishery, so a new flavour. That's really where it is. And fish would fall to it. And you're thinking, right, and this is where I was right in the beginning. Well, they must be eating it. And I was, you know, making all these assumptions, daft assumptions in retrospect. But the fact is, if you said to me, and I saw baits that went from the top all the way down, and they basically blew, because then there's all these things about, oh, the fish get used to it, they're aware of it, and millions of things that people make assumptions. The simple truth is, if it's not bait, they'll stop eating it. And they learn very quickly if it's not bait, you know, and that's just nature. You know, they'll try it if it's not, and that's how baits blow, in my humble opinion. Because when people say to me, they blow it because they get used to it, well, maggots and worms haven't blown. You know, all these things that have a natural food content, or HMV baits. You know, we Jungle, which is a milk protein. You know, for 9 years we fished. That was the first bait I bought out commercially. 9 years. And we were still catching as many, if not even more, fish on Jungle, and the same fish at Pallatrax when we left. There was a big fish in there. We kept on catching. It seemed to love Jungle. It went over 40 pounds, and it was still. But that's because it's food. You know, and that's the difference. If you want a good bait, it needs to be food quality. You will catch fish on poor quality bait because it's a lure, and they'll pick up out of being inquisitive. But the fact is, if you want to keep on catching, if you want to, your confidence wants to be brimming, you know, that bait needs to have an HMV value, not just the flavour and the colour. That's you know, that's a tiny part of it. Some of it is definitely reflective on the day, but the main thing is to have the 98% of that bait, what it's made of, is to be actually a food concept. So when the fish eat it, they're basically drawing a nutritional value, they're utilising it. If a fish eats something and they're expending energy to basically digest it, and it's not giving them anything back, they just stop eating. So that's how baits blow, in my humble opinion. Baits blow when you have low nutritional value. Yeah, there we go. Multiple catches obviously does damage, as you say, Palmer. I was out of commercial yesterday and watched anglers on far bank. Carp under £10. Yeah, it's some of this mouth. I'm doing this thing again with my it's all going wrong when I'm pressing the thing. Hang on a sec, folks. I got that far. Multiple catches obviously does damage. Yeah, Cliff. I mean, and that is the truth. You know, certainly if you look at the hook links, you look at all of these things coming into, you know, thin hook links, big rods, massive action has got to occur to basically bend that rod. Playing a fish too tight, goes in there, slits through. And unfortunately, I've done it. That's why I can talk with authority. I used to use a hook link material when I first started carp fishing, and I did, and I used to ban certain stuff, and as they are here, because like I say, you get it. It's like anything. If you cut it, you know, if you were to cut in there and then you didn't let it heal, and then it cuts again, it would just get deeper and more infected and things like that. And that's how you get parrot mouth. I don't believe for a minute what you were saying earlier, in my humble opinion, not trying to be, you can go off in direction of talking about, of course, as soon as you have a wound, that wound is open for infection. So again, that's the problem. If you don't treat that wound, and if a fish goes again, picks up a bait, caught exactly the same place, you will cause that scissor damage. And it's not hooks, it's literally tight braids, very thin braids, cheese wiring as the pressure's put on. Hopefully that all makes sense. Two friends of the River 7, good, that's Stav, that's what it's all about. Well done, my friend. I do different hook baits to my PVO, different colours and flavours. Yeah, that's what we do, mate. Make it all fun now, exactly. That's Tim talking. What is the bait in the tank called? That's Crave, the one in the bank. Just opened my first pot of Meat Beast Glove. Oh, dear me, that one is a proper stinker, isn't it? We're going to make a bait on that soon. Where are we? Young lad, 28 count on lure, 6 foot rods, perch fishing. Yeah, they do. I know Bob in France has caught some stonking over at Le Quay, stonking cats on lures. So, and again, when you think about it, it's natural, you know, because that's what they're feeding on. They're mullering fish. So certainly one to think about if you go. Lee, what test do you usually rod? I've been using 2.5 with a lot of fun, up to £20. I personally, It's a massive thing. I've been in this trade for so long, and I don't want to be hypercritical, but what we're doing, a lot of these rods now, these short rods, high test curves and things like that, they were designed for specific reasons. A rod for centuries got to a level of 12 foot where that was the most kind of accepted in most areas of fishing. So I'm a 12-foot man, rod, that is, not tall. And I would normally fish on 2 1/4 to 2 1/2s, because I'm going to get much more action. There's a lot of things. I'm not a heavy rod man. I like a nice through action so I can feel the fight and things like that, and really enjoy it. I'm not over gunning it, but there's loads of different opinions on that. But I actually fish, majority of the times I fish a 2.75 through action, which are these hand built rods I had made for me. And the reason they got that extra oomph is because of 99% of the fish, I'm fishing those complex method mixes around my stone. And, we're talking several ounces that I'm hoofing out, how many wraps or whatever it is. I'm not too sure on the wrappy thing. Yeah, that's the reason. So it's still very through action. I don't have anything above 275, and if I was fishing, I've got some 2 1/4s, which I caught some very, very big fish on. And then if you look at some of my friends, like Bob, talking about Bob and Tim Hodges and people like that, 2 1/4s for £50 carp is not out of the question. A lot of people would have a differing opinion of me, but being involved in the trade and having to tackle shops and seeing the other things, some of the other things that go behind the scenes. 2 1/2 is a really, really nice rod for general carp fishing. If you need something over £3, I would suggest it's for when we're fishing some of these waters abroad, when you're taking out baits out long distances and things like that. Pick your test curve to suit your fishing. Yeah, it's like I say, there's lots of different variables come into it. But at the end of the day, it's all about enjoyment, isn't it? And go into shop, try a few, but like I say, it shouldn't just dictate, the test curve shouldn't just dictate, the rod you choose. Look at where you tend to go the majority of the time, but also look at the match angler. And I'm not saying, because money's important, obviously, and we tend to have 2 or 3 rods for carp fishing, even barbel fishing now. But the match angler will have specific rods for specific work. Whereas we're looking for something that's kind of a job that does it all. And I would say 2 1/2, 2.75 is where I would be. 2.75 if you're going to be fishing, method PVA bags, really hoofing out a bit of weight. When HMV baits, but one favourite seems to work every time despite having a low nutritional value. It's always worked on fish. It's a good question here, and I've lost it. Where was it? That was a really good question. Stand boat, folks. Oh, this is so frustrating because as soon as I press it, it all goes wrong. Tesco's, right, I've got that. HMV. Yeah, we're talking, this is the variables in fishing, isn't it? I would suggest if it had no nutritional value, they would not eat it. I really would suggest that. Cliff, to be fair, I don't think it, but look at sweet corn, but is sweet corn full of natural sugars, that crunch, that different, I don't know, we're having to make it up in many ways because we're having to basically make assumptions because we can't get that individual fish on that individual day to talk to us. But there's definitely, like I say, sweet corn is not something that's got huge nutritional value, but it has got a nutritional value and it's got a taste. Don't forget, nature likes tastes as well. It's not just a human thing. So, look at many insects and animals that gravitate to salt. Look at the cow with the salt lick. Look at how ants react to sugar. So taste is very, very relevant. But I would suggest if it had no nutritional value at all, that I would be very, very, very surprised to fish to be consistently caught on, because they certainly wouldn't be eating the freebies, because it's like me asking you to eat a wax apple. Might take one bite out of it, but you wouldn't carry on eating it. And I suggest fish, because they know to survive they have to feed, and if they're not going to feed on something where they're expending more energy than actually getting nothing out of what they're feeding on. So, but again, one of the mysteries and the variables. Just got my hands on some custom centuries for a really good price for the bigger stones. Good stuff. Can't. My feeders guru, engage are the best rods that don't matter what I fish for. There you go. I don't know about a £50 swimming down the Seine on that, but there we go. Colin's the £3, but he's fishing huge distances. But again, as long as you, as long as you're enjoying your fishing, I think that's the main thing. But just be aware that you can be overgunned, and therefore you lose a lot of the pleasure of the fight. Small fish, as I said, mouth damage, bite detection, lots of things going on when you're looking at a rod. So I think Martin, I said about sweet corn not blowing. So just to reinforce that, nobody knows, but it does have a nutritional value. It does have natural sugars and sweeteners. So is that the reason? But it's not a negative. You look at a lot of fish farms in France, especially, are feeding maize, which is just obviously a form of sweet corn, and corn and things like that. So it does have a nutritional value, and it is very much used as a supplementary fishery and fish farm feed form. So, hopefully that gives us. Don't try and chuck a 6-ounce bag. But they do hover up sweet corn. So I was saying, never had a £50. Will help. One day you'll come to France with us. What do you think about eggshell in your boilies? I once heard an old top angler say that you can't eat them quietly. Yeah, it's a funny one. That's a good one, I suppose, as well. Getting some great questions here. Again, just my opinions, folks. I'm not here to impress them. You've asked me the questions because I've got fed up of trying to defend myself to some of these haters where it's just like, look, this is just the way I tick. If you've got something to tell me that is new, that is true, I'm all over it. Eggshell. Back in the day, I've been making bait for nearly over a quarter of a century now, which sounds a long time. I suppose it is, isn't it? But there was a belief back in the days that if you put it in your bait, the fish would crunch down on it, and they like crunching through the flange, and all this kind of stuff. And then you start looking at, is it just people being lazy and just throwing eggs in and the shells and smashing them all up into the mix and things like that? I don't know. There's too many. I suppose again, there's lots of reasons. I don't. It's not something that I think is. It would be included within a good bait personally, but there's a viewpoint to say that fish like the crunch of it and all that, but it's all based on assumption. So when I'm making baits, I want it to be ingredients that I know are proven to be of benefit. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the old eggshell kind of assumption. So there we go. There you go, Dave saying 2.75, 12 foot, same as me. Human struggles to digest sweet corn. Yeah, again, it's not something, like I say, it's not something that we would live on forever. Yeah, come on, Christian, we're going to Lequy in March. There's still places on the Lequy trip, if anybody wants that one. That's going to be good fun. Where are we? You don't really digest it when you go to... Yeah, exactly. So you say the same with peanuts, and things like that. Why do carp love tiger nuts? It's not a high nutritional value to it, but again, if you study the kind of chemical makeup as such, it is what it is. Right, just before we go, because time is ticking, I'm not going yet, but just if you're new, there is the raffle for 4 packets of the outstanding grips. Just PM yes to the Pallatrax site, and we will get that going. So I will continue to draw that very shortly. So any other questions? We've done the crunch. Yeah, and is it, Neil? Is it? I like some things, and again, because we're all now starting to guess, but is it just simple things like that they get that crunch? Look at how peanuts have caught so many fish. But tiger nuts, there's no real nutrition. Go on then, Christian. Sorry, Paul, I'm not sure. Yeah, Gary, I'm so sorry about that. I was told, it's high sugar in tigers. There you go. I think it's a lot of things like that. So apologies from Galen. We'll try and get him next week. I was told by match anglers that chucking eggshells in held them in your swimmers, he would suck them in and spit them out. Ooh, I don't know. The thing is, you see, where I'm with a lot of this stuff, Cliff, if you actually read what you've just said there, it's an old wives' tales, and again, it's based on assumption, and what assumption it makes the ass out of you and me kind of thing. So I always look at, and when people say to me, we can look at it from circumstantial evidence, like sweet corn. We can look at sweet corn and say, well, it's not a high nutritional value, so why are they eating it? And we can sit there and we can talk about it. We can talk about natural sugars and all this kind of stuff, and things like that. But But when you start saying things like that, I do really question. Probably somebody's presented it from the right, the right point of view, but you are basing it on assumption. And then and some of these assumptions actually become fact, doesn't it? So when it isn't fact, it is an assumption. But like I say, I'm not a fan. I've been doing this bait thing a long reason. If I thought there was a genuine reason to have egg in, and it'd actually kind of make baits cheaper in some ways as well, I would be using it, but I can't see it, to be quite honest. Just my opinion. Before all the haters come out and hate me. I was thinking about, there's Christian thinking about the 5500s, the Shimano's. I would certainly, me personally, and I'm not sponsored by anybody other than Pallatrax, Shimano's are, if you're looking for a carp reel, I've never been able to beat Shimano's. Daiwas are very good as well. I've used to have some Daiwas. I think you need to be very careful with, like most things in life, sometimes it doesn't become cost effective buying cheap, a bit like shoes, isn't it? You can buy some cheap shoes and they all look nice and shiny, and then within 2 weeks they're all falling to bits. Sometimes I look at some of the reels on the market and some of the things written where they've just not stood up to the test of time, being left out in conditions when you're bivvying up for days on end and all this kind of stuff. And I would always point people to the direction of, if a new reel is inaffordable, look at the second-hand market. There's a lot of reels out there. Good second-hand Shimano's will last you forever. So I am a Shimano person, not because anything other than I just can't beat them, but that's not to say there isn't other reels that are out there that are good, but Shimano's are right up there for me. So about nuts, I thought peanuts cause damage to the health of carp liver. How say are they? Yeah, that's why, Michael, I won't allow any form of nut baits at my fisheries. The trouble is that there's fact that they can get lodged in the digestive tract, because if their flandrals haven't these crunching plate at the back of the throat, if they haven't smashed it down where it actually can go in, they can get lodged in this digestive tract. They haven't got stomachs like humans and other animals. They have a digestive tract, so like this long tube that goes within the intestine, and if it's not broken down, it can't be broken down. It can block in there, especially something that hasn't been cooked properly, soaked, and really kind of becomes very, very soft. That's why they're not. They can cause damage. They can cause death. They're known to be cause death. So if they're not cooked properly, you really, run the risk of fish hoovering them up and then just filling up their digestive tract, which is something that naturally break down. It's too hard to break down. Then you get those problems. So, I can only talk to myself as a fishery owner and a keeper of fish and water quality. They work without a shadow of a doubt, but sometimes it could be potentially fishing at all costs. So I just think you need to be very, very careful with some of these pulses and seeds and things like that to make sure, if you're going to use them, that they are cooked properly, and that they can be broken down within the digestive tract. Hopefully that makes sense. There you go, Robert's saying good. They see it all the time. Do they treat it like a natural? Possibly. And I'm talking about sweet corn. Love the live feed. So much angling knowledge. I've fished for 30 years and still learning. We're all here to share it, Neil. That's the good thing about these live feeds. They're, and obviously I'm in the driving seat, so to speak. Yeah. What's this one here? I can't see, but yeah, I keep on doing these. I love, Sunday evenings. What else? I'm not a church goer, so I can come and have a chat with folks about angling, and and it's all good fun. Where are we now? Oh, can't read it now. Oh dear me. Bait prep is important. Without a shadow of a doubt. But I think, prep of everything. Ash is saying, forget about this live. My team hoodies in that will be here tomorrow, but how long do the bait orders say? It all depends on the bait orders. We only make things fresh, so we never have stocking sat around doing nothing. If you order it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on weight, it'll come out on DPD next day courier. Don't order freezer baits on a Friday. Well, you can, but they won't be sent out until the Monday, because we're not going to have potentially something sat around over the weekend. This is our church bombs live feeds. That's very cool. So going back to the one thing there that, this really resonates with me is where's the Kraken? Not tonight, it's going to be afterwards. I'm going to go and sit out by the lake in a bit. It's really nice and peaceful. I've been doing some work out there today. Swim's looking really nice. I'm not going to put the rods out. I'm just going to go and chill out and have a nice little run. Bait prep is important. I would say going further on that, you're totally right, Neil, but the prep of everything, especially in today's age, don't get too, like I say, I'm really into all this stuff. I'll spend ages prepping all this and getting it right the day before so I can get something that's going to create what I want, and that is key. And bait prep is key. Make up things the day before, or even weeks before. Some stuff you can freeze stuff down. There's so many things you can do with bait, but ultimately it's all about the ingredients with bait for me. And that, when I say ingredients, the ingredients on something like that, this is a water-based carrier, so it's a animal feed registered flavour. Okay, a very expensive flavour, that's the Crave Booster, and it's actually on a water base, not an oil base. And the reason it's on water base is because it can ingress. So I can spray it into some of my little pop-ups and they will actually absorb it. I'll spray them into these pop-ups, give them a couple of hours, and I'll take them out and dry them for a couple of hours, spray again, and keep on putting layers and layers and layers of flavour, but it's the correct flavour. It's a good flavour. It's a fish-safe flavour. But yeah, bait prep without a shadow of doubt is desperately important. Makes a huge difference as well. Where's the Kraken? I think we got that. I ordered on Thursday the Team Almond. Yeah, if you order on Thursday, so it won't have gone out because it's been Friday at Ash, so it'll be going out tomorrow. But I will check for you, sir. Always great. Thanks, Kristen. It's great that you... Oh, leave me alone. Make me feel embarrassed now. First I've seen some great fast cheers. Well, no worries, Jake. Glad you're here. Get on the bench. Stink Sue uses it for deodorant. Brave not opened in the house, lol. Yeah, well, don't go down the wild crab. That's a real killer, that one. But here it is. Now we have another mini drum roll. And tonight's Danny Pimblett. If I'm saying that right, I hope. Pimblett. If I can hold it that way, you'll actually be able to read it. So there you go, Danny. Congratulations. You have won this. If you can just send where you sent your yes to, your address details, I'll get those out in the post tomorrow. And if you haven't been on Grips, the Grips design, it's a third design, hook design. It has these small grooves in here which really holds the hook hold firm under the fight, and then really easy, no mouth damage, durable cutting point, which fish after fish. I spoke to a gentleman last week at the Carp Society show, one of the team members, Matt, and he came up to me and said, "Do you know what? I've had 60 fish on the same hook." That's going good. Well, that's going very well. So have we got any more questions? Because I've just done over my hour and Kraken is a calling. But hopefully that's been interesting. Let's just go back to my little... Now, obviously, this hasn't had any fish, picking up or undertow. I don't know if I can get closer. Oh, there you go. That's a bit closer. And so you can see that those baits are now sitting in like a pile of goodies. And so if I just use this pen... you should be able to see. So this here, you see, so any fish I'm going to be able to, but this is all high attract. And so if they're knocking that around, they're just further enhancing. So yeah, look at that, folks. It's another good tactic. It's like another fly in many ways. That's what it's all about, creating something different. Look at all those particles whizzing around. And say, I do love the Daphne as well, because Daphne is such a prevalent kind of food source in the lakes and rivers and canals we fish. Is everywhere. This time of year especially, you'll see all these little micro dots. I always take a jug, similar to this, a plastic one like that. And when I get to a lake, I'll always dip it in, because I'm going to use it to make a method mix and all those kind of things up. But I'll dip it in and I'll just look, and you'll see all of these different critters. It's so interesting, because there is literally thousands of different forms of life that swim around these lakes and canals and systems. And these fish, whether it's a gudgeon through to the hugest carp, or they're eating these kind of small invertebrate, but they're eating them like a whale shark. They're just going around. If you see a carp on the surface in the summer, and they're on those surface layer, and they're just sitting there and they're breathing, and every time they're breathing in, it's like a pea soup of calories, isn't it? So yeah. But like I say, I do apologise. Galen didn't make it this evening. I know he was all geared up and it would have been great to him. He's got such an interesting story. So hopefully we can get him back on next week. I don't know why it's not worked. Hopefully some of this has been of interest. There's been a few little gems in amongst us. As always, you know, if you're not team members, please feel free to join Team Pallatrax. It's a free initiative. Many team members are here this evening. You know, we do all kinds of decent things. You just go on to my website, the Pallatrax website. Feel free to join, because what we do is we have a live feed on here on the main Pallatrax page, and then every other week we have one on the team page. I have one on the team page every Sunday from 7 p.m. So again, thanks for all the support this evening. Thanks for everybody here. Thanks for all the questions. It always makes my life a bit easier. And say well done, Dan, for winning that. And I'll no doubt see a lot of you over the coming days. And yeah, thanks as always for everything that you're doing to support Pallatrax as we get to the next level. So yeah, see you next Sunday. And any questions between now and then, you can always pick up the phone or send me a message. Cracking calls. I'm off to sit on the lakeside at Ben's and just contemplate life. So stay safe, folks. All the best, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.